you've been busy at Money 2020, I'm sure. I'm sure you got your steps in. Everything I've seen on LinkedIn is people talking about how many steps they did.
Yeah, I saw a couple of posts around that, like make sure you take your inner soles and good comfortable footwear. It was about 30,000, I think, most days, and that was literally just walking. So it's nuts. They've split the hall up. Well, it's not a hall now. It's like 5 or 6 halls over God knows how many square feet. It was massive. And then, of course, we had London Tech Week straight after that, and FinTech Week London. So hence the little hiatus in the episode running. So we've had a mid-season break for a couple of weeks to get all of the fintechy stuff in. But no, it's been good. It's been very busy.
Awesome. Well, welcome back to season 2, episode 4 of the wonderful podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Carmen.
And I'm Kieron. And this is a term that's often used and probably overused, but our guest today, I can absolutely say, is formidable. In the true sense of the word, a bit like disruptive. We all hear about disruptive technologies, and very few of them are. But if anyone it can be described as formidable, it is Alistair Brownlee. Welcome, Alistair.
Hiya. Well, welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
Great to have you with us today, really. I'm going to start, actually, if you don't mind, by reading a very short piece from your Wikipedia page, because I think people obviously realise you're fairly awesome in everything you've achieved, but I was astonished when I read this. So I'm just going to quote verbatim. Alistair is the only athlete to hold 2 Olympic titles in the individual triathlon event, winning gold medals in the 2020, 12 and 2016 Olympic Games. He's also a 4-time world champion in triathlon, being Triathlon World Champion twice and world team champion twice. A 4-time European champion and the 2014 Commonwealth champion. Alistair is this is the bit I love. Alistair is the only athlete, male or female, to have completed a Grand Slam of Olympic, World, Continental and Commonwealth championships. He's also a 1-time, it's a little bit disappointing, Alistair, world champion in aquathlon. I am joking, of course. Widely regarded as one of the greatest male triathletes ever. I mean, pretty phenomenal stuff. Which probably leads Carmen into her very first question.
Yeah, I was just interested to know, like, what takes up most of your week these days? Like, what does your week to week look like?
Still, the vast majority of my week is training and being a professional athlete. I train on average about 30 hours plus. It's broken down as something around 7 to 8 hours of swimming, between 12 and 16 plus hours of cycling, and 8 hours of running, depending entirely on the week. A couple of hours of gym, a bit of massage and various other stuff. So obviously that's a big chunk of time around training and eating and recovering from that. But yeah, outside of that, I do all kinds of other fun, interesting projects that I enjoy, such as doing stuff with the Brownlee Foundation, working with the International Olympic Committee as an athlete representative, and have various businesses and things to look after too.
I mean, it's amazing. I've got no understanding of how you do that amount of training. It's phenomenal. But you mentioned the Brownlee Foundation, and of course that's how we first came across you. The Brownlee Foundation is one of the charities on wonderful.org, and we're very proud and delighted that you're represented on there as well. But I think it'd be really interesting for our listeners who may not know about the foundation, if you could just tell us a little bit more about what it's up to, what the activities are, what does it do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We started the foundation in 2014, really because we like to joke that every school and sports club in Yorkshire invited us, asked us to come and, kind of inspire their athletes and kids post the Olympics in London. And we firstly thought, oh, that's really cool, what an opportunity. And then we thought, yeah, what a responsibility as well of 2 people who, really believe in the importance of health and exercise in all of our lives. So we thought, well, the way to do this is try and start a foundation and build it and do what we can to put on events and try and spread that effect, that impact across as big a number of people as possible. So we've grown over the years. This year we're going to put on events for about 15,000 young people do their first triathlon with us, across mostly Yorkshire Northern based, but events in the Midlands, Manchester, even one in London. So yeah, it's really cool. It's something both of us are very proud of, and we're kind of constantly growing and adapting as well. Working hard not just on events, but putting on follow-on opportunities, donating bikes to school in need, and other equipment, financing training sessions where there's need. A whole range of things now.
It must be really interesting seeing that from the other side, because I was taking part in events and the coordination side. I mean, I'm going to say I've run. I'm really embarrassed about saying that in present company, but I've run in kind of events over many, many years, Great North Run, all that kind of thing, and then marshalled for the first time, having done it for a long time. And it was really interesting to see the whole event and soak up the atmosphere as a spectator, but actually help out as well. I mean, I'm guessing the Brownlee Foundation, in terms of putting on those events, there's a fair degree of coordination and human activity that's going on behind that. Has that proved to be a different kind of challenge from the stuff that you're used to?
Yeah, well, that's definitely very true. You don't realise the logistics and what goes on the other side of those barriers when you do events, and I still can't say that I do. We have a fantastic team that helps at the Brownlee Foundation. We have 2 full-time employees, trustees, some of whom are really active and do loads of work for us, along with our long-term manager who does a lot of work on the event. So we've got a great team. It's a well-oiled machine, to be honest. I've been to a few over the last few weeks. I'm really impressed by how well they run, and ultimately how many smiling faces you see coming across the finish line.
Oh, it's an amazing thing. It really, really is. And in terms of the funding of that through the foundation, you're obviously seeking donations for that. Is the kind of a membership when people join us, or an entry fee that also goes to support it? I'm just curious as to how that would work as well.
So no, it's really important for us that those events are completely free for kids to turn up. They turn up as in their schools. So a school might come and bring 5, or it could bring 50 plus of their students, years 5 and 6 in primary school, key stage 2. And it's all about, for us, removing the barriers for young people to be able to do those events. And so, yeah, we don't want to charge. It's funded through a combination of, actually, Johnny and I funded it to start with, and then commercial partnerships with sponsors, donations, and some events that we run. So, yeah, donations are very, very important to us.
And you mentioned at the beginning there that kind of the catalyst for this was you being invited. Was there a kind of particular moment when you thought, okay, this is something that we really want to do, or was it just that organic growing of being asked to go and support more and more things, and it came out of that?
Yeah, I think it was quite organic, to be fair. 10 years ago now, I can't entirely remember. But yeah, I mean, it was just the kind of effect of after the Olympics. I think for both Johnny and I was crazy. No one does triathlon to gain notoriety, and all of a sudden people knew who we both were, and were asking us to do all these things, and both of us thought, yeah, well, this is an amazing opportunity to really promote and be advocates for something that we believe in. But also it's kind of a bit of an obligation as well, and that's really where the foundation came from.
So for anyone listening, if they want to get involved, is it best just to check out the website and see what events are on, and if they want to donate and things like that, obviously they can donate through there? I'm just thinking we might have listeners that think what you're talking about is really cool and want to join in somehow.
Well, that would be amazing. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's really a few ways you can join in. Way number 1 is visit the website and donate. To put it in perspective, we are a very lean charity. Pretty much all of our funding, we employ a couple of people, but we don't spend money on anything else. All of our money goes to putting on events. About £10 to £15 pays for one child to turn up and do an event for free. So, a very, very kind of clear-cut amount of money. And way number 2 is in an event. If you look up and you find we've got an event in your area, and you don't think the local primary school that your child goes to, or you work at, or friends is involved, tell them to get involved, because there's still ones that we miss. And similarly, if the event's in your area and you'd like to volunteer. All our events run with 40, 50 plus volunteers, so having local volunteers is really important to us. And thirdly and finally, we're now putting on mass participation events. We've got them in 2 locations this year, in Ripon and the Lake District in July and September. You can enter those from the Brownlee Foundation website or TBF events. If you search that, they'll both come up. And the point of those events is to put on really good, reasonably priced triathlons for people to do of all ages, of all abilities, and any of the profits raised from those events are going to go to the Brownlee Foundation too.
It is one of those things, you look at the success in that intro that I gave you there at the beginning, but obviously, it doesn't stop at the sporting prowess, because your university career was at Cambridge, no less. What did you read there, Alistair?
I'm not sure you can call it career. It was about 6 months, if that. But yeah, I started studying medicine, and yeah, it was amazing opportunity. I love school and studying and academics, but I wanted to go to the Olympics more ultimately, so I decided to stop doing that and made the very active decision to go and be an athlete, which had very literally been my childhood dream.
Clearly made the right choice.
Thankfully, yeah. Sure. I wasn't sure at the time, but it turned out okay.
I'm guessing again from the Wikipedia page, you did that with the full support of your parents as well, just looking at their own backgrounds.
I did. I mean, it was a really tough one for them and for me. I was turning my back on, I guess, a world that they knew very well, academics and medicine, and I don't think any parent would feel. It's a very kind of safe approach, isn't it? Studying medicine and job for life. So you can imagine that was a massive draw and hard to step away from, to something, to be a professional triathlete, which, to be honest, I wasn't really sure was really a thing, at the time. But thankfully it did work out. I had support from both of them, and especially my dad was very much like, ultimately you have to follow your dreams and your passion, and the kind of this concept of it probably doesn't really matter too much of what you're doing. Just make sure you do whatever you do as well as you possibly can do it. And I think that was a really kind of important concept. And what it did do is, both of them encouraged me to start in the first place, because start studying in the first place. Because at the time I was just won a world junior title, and I was like, wow, maybe I shouldn't go to university at all, and just focus on my triathlon. But actually starting was 100% the right decision, because when I kind of stepped away from that, I was like, I'm actively choosing to be a professional athlete here. I had another amazing opportunity, and I'd be letting myself down if I didn't give anything but 101% to this. And I think that was always very important for me.
Yeah. My parallel on a totally different level and with a totally different background was my mother encouraging me. I said, I was 16 playing the drums, and I want to be a drummer in a rock band. I don't need all this university nonsense. And her advice was, go and get your degree first, and then I'll think about that. And actually, she proved to be completely right, because I did try the drumsticks for a while and failed miserably. So there you go. We can work out either way. But no, that is incredible. And as you're right, I think it's so much better to make that choice in the full knowledge of what that choice is by experiencing it for a bit. That's amazing. So really, really interesting. Thank you.
I think you just talked a lot about how your parents kind of encourage you to do what you love. And obviously you've found a lot of success in your career. What would you say motivates that level of success and keeping that going? What would you say your main driver is for that?
Ultimately, I don't know. I think motivation has to come from lots of different sources. It's something that I probably knew but couldn't articulate until I was researching, and then wrote a book where I interviewed loads of performing sports people from a real wide variety of sports, from snooker player like Ronnie O'Sullivan to F1 rugby players, marathon runners, jump jockeys, all kinds of things. And what it really taught me was that all these guys, and these are people who are successful over decades. I think you've really got to find what motivates you to do what you need to do that day. Motivation, I've never found it to be a constant source. It's not like you can get up early every morning and go training 3 times a day for 4 years to train for the Olympics, just purely driven by the one thought of winning Olympic gold. Or I haven't found anyone who genuinely can motivate themselves in that way. Instead you get up in the morning and it's habitual. You're not giving yourself the option, and that habit and routine, I think, are the most powerful kind of forms of motivator we've probably got as humans. It's so important. And then outside, you might motivate yourself with a bit of breakfast or a cup of tea, and then you get in the pool and you're motivated because you're competitive to the person you're swimming next to, and then you're motivated to finish the session because it's nearly the end of the session. And maybe even on the very hardest of days, you're really pushing and you think, I've got to push through this last rep because the Olympic Games are coming up. And a combination of different motivators for different times. But I think it does all come down to, without the kind of bigger picture, that was a kind of individual session picture, is 2 things. I think it has to be habit, and you can't give yourself the option in bed in the morning of getting out or not. It's your life to get up and go swimming. And I think it just has to be inbuilt within you that it's who you are and what you do. And I think that's quite often, truthfully, even though I've tried to find ways to explain that over the years, I think in lots of ways it's inexplainable. It just is kind of every fibre of your being. And I've noticed that a few times as well. It's like I found myself training when there was no reason to be training apart from it's what I do, I enjoy, and get a lot of satisfaction out of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's a lot of people talk about the difference between how on days where you don't have motivation, you need to have discipline. And it sounds like a lot of it is discipline and building that habit, and it just being, if someone's routine is not doing certain things and yours is doing them, then you're just your day to day is doing that exercise and stuff then.
Yeah, I've heard of like motivation, discipline. I always kind of defined it as motivation and willpower. And for me, motivation is just doing what you need to do to get the job done. And willpower I kind of defined as that thing of, we all know about it, when you're sat on the sofa and you're thinking about going running or going to the gym. And I think it probably could be swapped with discipline in that sense. And you don't want to do it and you're trying to get yourself off the metaphorical sofa to go and do something. And the thing for me was that willpower or discipline was, you've only got a relatively limited bucket of that. So if you're having to use that all the time, then, you're going to struggle if you're trying to do 3 sessions a day and you're trying to get yourself off the metaphorical sofa 3 times a day to do what you need to do. That's tough. So you do everything in your power to avoid using that bucket of willpower and discipline. And I think you do that by making it habitual, doing something that you're passionate about, and all those other things.
Are there any areas, Alistair, where you've thought, I'd like to create, maybe it's outside sport, maybe it's somewhere else completely, I'd like to create that habit that you've obviously done so successfully in what you're doing, but have found that more challenging, maybe learning a language, or who knows what it might be. And would there be any tips for those where it does feel like you've got to do something to form the habit almost? Is it the same process, that kind of idea of willpower and belief and so on?
Well, yeah, definitely. It's, I can preach about it all day in sport, but in other, if you were telling me about tidying up or something, it'd be a completely different side of it. And yeah, I think all jokes aside, we've probably only got so much that we can be super disciplined about. Yeah, the rest of something has to give somewhere, doesn't it? But also, for me, I've found habits difficult to build in other areas. Like learning language is a good one, or studying something, or getting my general life admin jobs done, much harder to build. But yeah, I've always found that if I really need to do that, the same processes are applied of making something habitual in time, and removing distractions to be focused is the thing that works best for me.
We were talking, I think I mentioned probably a couple of episodes ago, I found an app that was recommended on another podcast, funnily enough, called Habits. And it's just about that. And it's kind of it's an odd little thing. It's very, very well executed, really well put together. But essentially informing the habits, and that might be do yoga or learn Spanish, whatever it might be, the argument that the developers of the app kind of put across very well is it probably takes about 60 days to start to form that habit of repetition and so on. And what they do is they reward you, and you're building this little 3D virtual thing that turns around. It's like it's almost like a tree or a sculpture or something like that. But it's so nicely done that if you tap on it, it'll play a little bit of music, and it's all really very zen. And it's an interesting one because it's not naggy. It's not one of those apps that's, keeps saying, do yoga, do yoga, do yoga. It just kind of gently reminds you and then rewards you with, oh, you've just had another piece to your sculpture. And I just find it really fascinating how humans, even at my old age now, still are tricked into doing things by something as simple as that. It's like giving the dog a treat, isn't it?
I agree. It is amazing, isn't it? It's I've kind of come across this a lot in, thinking about looking at like investing in working with these exercise apps, purely about that and trying to answer the question of what is it that helps people, what can we do to help people overcome those barriers to be more active? Almost all of us are going to need to be more active at some point for general health and well-being, and what motivates us today or what motivates you is going to be different that motivates me and motivates you or me tomorrow. And so there needs to be a lot of solutions, and you're completely right. It keeps coming back to this this thing that actually just simple human-like encouragement seems to be the most powerful motivator we've got.
Pavlov's dog. Ring the bell. Exactly. And just again, while we're on that theme of kind of training and all of that, is there anything, I'll probably use terms very badly and very loosely here, but is there anything that you recommend to, I'm guessing we'll have lots of triathletes listening, but anything you'd recommend over anything else that sits alongside the actual disciplines, be that yoga, Pilates, time in the gym? Is there anything that you see as being more important than anything else? Is it sleep? Is it diet? Is it all of those?
I think in true, the secret to sport is vast majority of it is training, like low level training. After that, it's sleep and then nutrition, and they're the big factors outside training. And obviously, it's all interrelated. And my experience is everything outside of that is the 1%ers, if not less. So yoga, supplements, stretching, massage, recovery equipment, all those things. Great, but training, sleeping, nutrition are the ones that the main kind of things to focus on.
So you're a big supporter of that specificity idea as well, of just also training, focusing a lot of the training in the discipline that you want to compete in. And
I think specificity, but also just a kind of appreciation of what works and focusing on the really simple things. I think we it's really easy to get distracted by slightly fancy things, but really training is about the amount of it you can accumulate over time, and you can accumulate more of it if you do it consistently, and you only do that over a long period of time. You're going to get faster. The human body on that level, we don't. It's really, really complicated. But the only thing that we do know is that if you do more something of it, you get better at it. So do more something of it and recover it. That is oversimplifying it in some ways, but it's about as good as we know. I would say that if you're obviously if your aims aren't to be aren't purely about whatever triathlon or running or whatever it might be, and you want general well-being and health, so things like flexibility and mobility and strength from Pilates, yoga, gym, whatever are important for sure, and general health. But then it's down to a time priority thing, isn't it? What do you want to give your time to?
It's so true. I've told this story a couple of times, but after running for many years, our local checkout operator in the supermarket I used to go to at lunchtimes was a yoga teacher in his spare time and a climber as well. So I'd often nip in him mid running gear at lunchtime, having nipped out for a couple of kilometres or whatever. And he said, you should come to my yoga class. And I looked at him askance and said, why on earth would I do that? And he said, I think you'll enjoy it. Anyway, he got me to go along, and I remember kind of going there, and he really taught me some humility, because I thought, I'm reasonably fit, fairly strong. How hard is this going to be? And you just completely and utterly destroyed me in 40 minutes. It was fascinating the next day to wake up and think, my God, I was really, really tight and stiff and I needed that. So I've kind of tried to keep pretty consistent with that over the years, and I've certainly found it helps with the running balance in that for me. But as you say, everyone's different and everyone will respond differently, I guess. Great.
Alistair, I just had one other question. So of the three sports, like of running, cycling and swimming, when you're doing it, is there any that you find is the most fun or that you're most enjoying yourself, like
I think
doing that sport?
Yeah, swimming's the one I enjoy the least. It's inside, it's swimming up and down in a lane. It's boring, it's monotonous. You always do it in the morning, like first thing. So yeah, it's tough. There are mornings, like today for the first time this year, there's a lake down the road we go to in the summer. For obvious reasons, only in the summer in Yorkshire. And because the weather's been quite bad, this was the first time we'd actually been. And to be honest, it was absolutely glorious, like clear water, blue sky, sunshine, just like glistening green and trees all around it. So it can be really, really nice. But yeah, swimming's the one I find the hardest. Biking and running I enjoyed the most. I love both of them. Running maybe edges it because it's just great that you can throw on a pair of trainers and get out the door and go for a run anywhere, anytime, be completely free, whether you're kind of in a city or up a mountain. But I love cycling as well.
Awesome.
Talking about the throwing on a pair of trainers, that leads me into another question. I mean, what's the merit? Is it so marginal for a runner of, moderate ability to be spending a lot of money on a pair of trainers? Is it going to give them any serious incremental advantage, or is that really for the properly elite performance athletes?
There's a few.
I don't need to upset any of your sponsors if you sponsor anyone.
I think. I do think trainers are firstly pretty individual. So I think find what works for you and mix it up a bit. Don't run in the same type of shoes all the time. I think that's quite good. And so, yeah, we're talking about in terms of like reducing your injury risk, enjoying your running over a period of time. I think, that's really solid advice. I'd kind of stick to a brand and a type of trainer, and that's good. If you want to run faster, I would have answered this question. No, probably until of the carbon super shoe era, and that 100% makes a difference. I think. Almost, of course, if you're running like slow, but if you're running, and by running I mean like 8-minute miles, say 5-minute kilometers, carbon shoes are going to 100% speed you up, 100% reduce the impact and damage in your legs, and make you be able to run longer. From everyone I've seen, it's unbelievable how much that's changed, and fascinating, like a fascinating story of innovation. If we had this conversation 7 or 8 years ago, we'd said, oh yeah, running is amazing, shoes haven't really changed that much in 50 years, and then just incredible step change in, really amazing.
Which company kicked that off, out of interest, Alice? Did you know? Was that Hoka, or is it someone else?
I think Nike did it first, but like Adidas, and then a lot of the other guys have followed very quickly, and now all the major brands have got their own offering. Something like Adidas has probably 4 or 5 carbon bladed models, and there seems to be a lot of kind of uniqueness with that as well. Some people respond better to some brands than other brands.
Right. Okay, interesting. No, I actually wasn't the answer I was expecting. So that's I think that's really great for a lot of runners as well. Thinking, because I think there's a lot in that. If I manage to form that habit and keep it going for 4 or 5 months, I'll treat myself to a nice new pair of trainers, and I think it can be another great motivator for people. So to know that might help them with the performance is great.
Makes running easier as well, for sure.
Definitely. Just going to switch gears a little bit here, because I want to talk about siblings, families, and all of that kind of stuff. You're probably aware Carmen is my daughter and also the co-founder of Wonderful and wonderful.org, and it's always been a bit of a family affair for us. I think at any given point there's been at least one member of the family other than me involved in the businesses that we've been working on for many, many years. Carmen pointed out on one of the podcasts in season 1, it would have been a disaster if we'd tried this when she was 15, which is probably true. But the relationship now is very different as she's a little bit older, and we get on very, very well. But there's got to be kind of a question about that sibling rivalry. It will be nuts not to have you on and talk about that a little bit, for you both to be in that same discipline, you and Johnny, and obviously the rest of the family kind of very, very strong in the sporting area. What's it like being in a family of such overachievers? I'm going to say that.
Yeah, of course, there's been a lot of rivalry over the years. We've grown up from being kids competing against each other, with each other and against each other, training on a daily basis. And the vast majority of that time, it's been very amicable. It's been pretty amazing, really, to learn and be able to push yourself every day against your brother, and to do a lot of those things kind of in sport when you're traveling the world, and all those kind of experiences that are new and sometimes can be tough for a young person. I guess we went through together, which was really special. And I think it was the vast majority, a performance gain for both of us. That said, of course, there was times when we didn't quite come to blows, but nearly did, and we had our slight quibbles. But we did pretty good.
No, I mean, I think it's incredible. You can see, there's obviously loads of parallels with Serena and Venus and all the rest of it. You can see how it will be a massive motivator, but also potentially a source of squabbling and fighting. But and particularly growing up doing it as well, because they're always quite challenging years for anyone, brothers and sisters. But to be actually competing in similar events and so on.
Awesome. Yes, so we had a lot of fun watching your adverts for Yorkshire Tea and Aldi. I'm just wondering what
I
one
think,
was the most fun to make. If you had
over the years.
or...
So the Yorkshire Tea one that we did, there's actually kind of a funny story that we literally filmed it at the Yorkshire Tea factory in Yorkshire in January. It must have been January. I just remember being freezing cold, and it was like an 18-hour day filming it, like so long, first thing in the morning to last thing at night. And we got there, and someone had. So we get out of what looks like a pond, but it was actually a specifically built, paddling pool for us to emerge from. And someone and it was like 0 degrees, like ice outside. And someone had told them the water temperature needed to be at 20 degrees. And I was like, why did they tell them the water temperature needs to be at 20 degrees? That's quite cold. Or 25. And they said, no, and they were putting cold water into it. I'm like, why are you putting cold water in here? They're like, we're cooling it down because it needs to be 20 degrees. So no, it needs to be a minimum of 20 degrees. Stop cooling it down, warm it up more. And it was that was funny, amazing experience. I always, I'm probably not cut out for TV, like too much sat around and faffing, but I do love visiting factories and just seeing how stuff works. And the Yorkshire Tea Factory is amazing. There's a place where all of the tea leaves come in from various farms around the world, and then the actual tea bag is like something out of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. There's they're getting made, and then tea bags are rotating up onto like flying ducks on the ceiling and into the packaging room. It's really cool to see. I've been very lucky over the years to visit all kinds of production facilities, which I've enjoyed.
Did you get lots of free samples? Did they give you plenty of boxes to take away at the end of the day?
Yeah, thankfully I've had my fair share of Yorkshire tea over the years.
Sure. And talking about that kind of stuff, are you a frequenters of the Brownlee Arms? Is it still called the Brownlee Arms?
Yeah, it is still called the Brownlee Arms. Yeah, don't go that much actually. There seems something a bit strange about sitting in a pub with your name on the door. A
bit narcissistic, maybe. Yeah. But it's great. Exactly. What an honour. Fantastic.
It is an honour, yeah. Of all the honours I've been lucky enough to have, that is definitely the one that kind of strikes a chord with most people, because it's just a pub. It's such a English thing, isn't it?
Well, I think it's very, very cool. Very nice. And talking about those kinds of honours, a very different one, but what was it like meeting Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth?
It was very special. Again, you don't really expect to get honours from being a triathlete. Like I said, when you start being a triathlete at 8 years old. But very, very special. Just going to Buckingham Palace was good. I went with both my parents, which was fantastic.
And is it kind of all you imagined it would be? If I was sitting here trying to imagine what it'd be like, I can sort of imagine the pomp and circumstance and a kind of nice garden party and all of that kind of. Is it pretty much as you hear people describe it?
I think it was like that. It was a long time ago now. I can't remember it that well. I remember it must have been quite, earlier in the year. I remember it being quite cold in Buckingham Palace. And yeah, you're just walking down massive halls, like massive, hundreds of meters long, it felt like. And yeah, then you're waiting and you get ushered into this room. You meet her for a couple of questions and then off you go.
Amazing. Brilliant. I'm sure you've got some lovely photographs, though, of the event as well. Brilliant. Well, thank you. I think the only thing that we had left for you for today, because we don't want to take up more of your time, you've been exceptionally generous with that. But one of the things that we do each week, and if you've had a chance to think about it, is a pick of the week, which can be anything really. It might be a book that you've read recently, or an app that you use, or a TV series. It doesn't need to be related to health, fitness, or anything, but just something that you'd recommend others that you've stumbled across that they might find useful or interesting.
I've been reading a really interesting book called The Maths That Made Us. Can't remember who it's by. I think I got it for Christmas, but it's really good. Just a kind of history of just some of the simple maths and how it came about. And it's just contextualized really well. I've been enjoying that.
Oh, very good. Well, we'll pop that on the screen to recommend that one. Carmen, anything from you for this week?
Yeah, mine's also in the theme of books. I have always been very pro physical books, but I've recently started using a Kindle and I do enjoy it, I have to admit. And for going on holiday in the summer and stuff, I think it is worth it. I still miss highlighting.
Yeah, but you can't say I really love the smell of a Kindle in the way you can in your book.
Give it a try.
Not the same. So I'm going to do a book. I'll wave mine in front of the screen and then I'll promptly put it up on the screen properly. But
that's true.
This was bought for me by Carmen and her sister for Father's Day, Anatomy of a Breakthrough, and I'm really enjoying it. There's some really interesting stuff in here, and it's again the parallels for business and life and generally and how those breakthroughs happen. A lot about patience and motivation. But one interesting thing that I read in the start of this was something described as the goal gradient effect, which you might have come across. I don't know whether you have or not, but kind of quite fascinating that in lots of research, there's an acceleration when you start something and often an acceleration as you reach the end of that, which is quite human nature, I guess. But one of the analogies he draws very well, the author, he said, imagine you're on an ocean liner leaving New York. When you look behind you, you see the Empire State fading away into the distance and the movement seems quite rapid. So there's a lot of energy around that. Similarly, as you approach in the UK and you enter the English Channel and then turn left, you've got those landmarks, and it's the bit in the middle, even though the pace might be exactly the same, that can feel the hardest and the most troublesome. And I was just seeing the parallels there between that and any of the kind of distance running and all of those kinds of things, where those, I was describing it, the middle 24 miles in a marathon can seem incredibly long. But yeah, so it's kind of motivation and tips for getting through that and understanding that, that's a human nature and a human response. I found quite an interesting thing. So that's my recommendation for this week. Any parting shots, Alistair? Anything that you'd like to tell listeners about you mentioned the Brownlee Foundation? Anything else that you'd want to share? And if not, that's fine too.
No, absolutely not. Just to say thank you both for having me. Thanks for the great job you do and keep up the great work.
No, thank you. And it's been our pleasure entirely, really. Thank you again for sharing your time so generously.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Take care.